Alright, so what is Action Set Go doing for 2020?
I don't know, man. I don't have 2020 vision.
You seriously went there? I can't do this.
But I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, this way? Do that stupid joke. Dumb shit. I deal with this. I'm so sick of this. Shit. Damn it.
Hey, look, it's Chris, who I totally haven't been secretly stalking now for the past 5 seconds.
Is that? Oh my.
Come on, man. We got to record our 2020 New Year's video, even though we don't have 2020 vision.
Oh God! Would you stop it with the freaking jokes, dude? Like, I'm Chris.
I'm Christian, and Happy New Year's, everybody. Another decade.
Another decade. Wow, it's been like the 20s are upon us again.
The 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. No, we've been in 4 decades.
Mm-hmm. That's true. The 20s are upon us again. Prohibition.
Great Depression.
that was 30s, you idiot. That's in another 10 years.
Which won't stop in the next 5 decades.
Oh, hell no.
But as we're here again, we're wishing everyone a Happy New Year.
Happy and safe New Year.
Hopefully you all had a great time last night. I know I did.
This is the start of new beginnings.
And, well, because I know everyone loves to ask that question, and that will probably be our response whenever you ask what we're doing in 2020. We don't have 2020 vision.
No, we don't.
But I'm hoping to get him back on the road more.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it's time for us to annually blab about which videos we liked more than others.
Yay.
And I'll let you start.
Annually blab. My number 5, I'd have to go with the plane spotting at Buffalo Airport from August 24th. I was using my fancy video camera, and I got some really cool sunset shots. I always love getting sunset shots at Buffalo Airport. My number 4 was plane spotting at Buffalo Airport on November 17th and doing the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center in Washington, D.C. I'm picking this as my number 4 purely because of the museum. If you ever get a chance to go down to D.C., check it out. They have so much stuff down there. It's literally, you can literally spend pretty much an entire day there. I spent 2, kind of. But that was probably one of the best aerospace museums I've ever been in. My number 3 probably has to be the Norfolk and Western 611 and 475 reunion of steam. That was a cool chase. It was fairly short, but just the level of scenery we got, especially getting there first thing in the morning. It was foggy. You saw the 611 in the fog. It was just absolutely perfect. Then as the sun came up, the fog dissipated and it was just sunny, and the light was absolutely phenomenal. Plus it was cool for me finally getting to see the 611. It does live up to the hype. My number 2, it has to be the plane spotting at Cleveland International Airport. Yeah, this was our 2nd time going to an international airport to plane spot, and I wasn't sure exactly where to go, but the spot we picked was on the north end of the runways. We got to see some pretty fantastic arrivals. Departure shots were iffy, but the arrivals, they came in right almost over your head, almost. I mean, they got really close. It's definitely a spot I want to go back to at some point in the near future. Alright, and of course my number 1 was the Reading and Northern 425 Schuylkill Haven Borough Days. That was, the reason I'm putting this as my number 1 is because that was just a plain fun chase to do. It was simple, but we got to see a lot of Pennsylvania countryside. Like, to get to the bridge shot, we had to basically just drive in the middle of nowhere and turn left. It was kind of flipped out being in the middle of Nowheresville, PA, but the scenery there was absolutely phenomenal. What made that whole trip worth it was seeing the 425 pass onto the bridge shot at full speed. That was impressive. So that thing's just an impressive engine. But anyway, that's my top 5.
And I guess it's time for me to give my top 5 videos of 2019. Starting at number 5, the Reading and Northern 425 Fall Foliage Excursions. When I first saw 425, to me it was just going to be one of those engines, check off a bucket list, saw it, and move on with my life. Then I realized how cool it was. The hype about her stack talk is definitely up there, and that's why I returned in 2018. It was at the end of 2018 that I watched videos of other excursions other than the Fall Foliage that I realized what I had missed. Mountaintop, Schuylkill Haven Burrow Days, and the Santa Claus specials last year, and the Lehigh Valley Gorge trips. Well, while there was no Lehigh Valley Gorge trips in 2019, I had decided this year one of the 2 locomotives I really wanted to focus on was that in the Iowa Interstate 6988. So one thing I will talk about, and I might sound a little bit of a foamer, was I think whistle-wise this year I honestly picked a year that kind of sucked. I heard nothing but 3 chimes, whereas last year it seemed that they had variety. They started off with a Virginia 5 chime, going to a Pennsylvania 3 chime, to a Denver and Rio Grande 5 chime, to a Frisco Long Bell 3 chime. When I saw her, she had her usual Reading 6 chime on. You get the picture. This year, whistle-wise, wasn't the best, but to say that I care what whistle's on top of the locomotive when you could barely hear that under the thunder of the stack is another story in general. The Fall Foliage trips this year, seeing how I've shot them for 3 years in a row, I wanted to go for different shots. I wanted to go all out. And when I originally had planned out 2019, I was only planning on going for 2 days. Then in March, everyone's schedule changed this year with the Norfolk and Western 611's visit to Strasburg. I bought tickets for throttle times in that 2-day chase when I realized how much I just cut myself short, went to 3 days. I wanted to focus on spots I had never shot at before. I wanted to focus at different angles, and I wanted to obviously get some of those harder to get to locations, such as the Tamaqua Tunnel, Peacock's Lock Viaduct, and the only thing I did not shoot this fall was the Hometown High Bridge. That being said, with my sights set for Fall Foliage, I think I knocked it out of the ballpark. I shot locations I've never shot at before. I shot the usual, and one of the main reasons I did bring up the whistle point is because of the fact that on the second day I chased, it had a Chicago Quincy and Burlington Route 5 chime on the locomotive. That is probably the best whistle I have ever heard in person in my entire life. It was awesome. 425 never disappoints, and it doesn't matter what whistle is on the locomotive, she always puts on a show, and one of my favorite shots came from Tamaqua, the Peacock's Lock Viaduct, and number 4, the Pere Marquette 1225 on her North Pole Express 2019 edition excursions. This year we didn't get to see our channel's favorite locomotive as much as what we would have liked to. I started off the year with going to the Laro Productions Photocharter with the locomotive, which was a fun time. Initially, when sketching out this year, I had planned to go out and see the 1225 a little bit more. There was rumors about a fall excursion going back up to Cadillac this year, and when a schedule was accidentally leaked on RailServe, I got all excited about finally being able to shoot the line north of Alma, which there have been locations I've wanted to shoot since me and Chris rode on the 75th anniversary excursion. When 611 came and pretty much changed everyone's year this year, I knew the only chance I was going to see the 1225 was during the North Pole Express. I picked the last North Pole Express of the season because I wanted to end this year the same way I began it, with 1225. Was that a bad decision? No. I jokingly call this chase of the 1225 the Great Gathering in Owasso Part 2. Because if I told you all the people that I knew that I ran into there, I'd probably be going on for another 3 hours. That's literally just how many people I ran into. But I will give a shout out to A-Train Production 4014 and his crew, and a big thank you for the nighttime lighting shots. And a shout out to Santa Fe 669, who chased with us all day, and we had a great time. As well as I ran into our first subscriber ever, Jackson and Lansing Railroad, and his friend Michigan Rail Productions, who I ran into while chasing the big boy. This excursion, obviously, like with the 425 Fall Foliage, I went for shots that I had never gotten before. I wanted to shoot different angles of shots I have gotten, and I think I was pretty successful. Also, what I had mentioned in my last top 5 pick with Fall Foliage, how I was so happy that a CB&Q 5 chime was put on 425. 1225 had a guest whistle on this weekend. It had a C&O Hudson 3 chime, and that is a beautiful steamboat whistle, which obviously made the chase better. And another trivial point, where I will sound like a foamer, if anyone doesn't know, I absolutely cannot stand the flying number boards on 1225. The only Berkshire type locomotive preserved without them. So as a trivial detail, I was very happy to see that they were gone. But regardless, Flying number boards are not all I care about, is that there is a fire in 1225's firebox, and she did great. And with the lighting provided by A-Train 4014 Productions, I think our night shots came out awesome. Number 3, Union Pacific 4014, the Great Race to Chicago. Now I know some of you probably are surprised that's not my number 1 or my number 2. Seeing how we were able to cover the 2 biggest railfan events in the East of 2019, the Union Pacific Big Boy going to Chicago and the Norfolk and Western 611 coming to the Strasburg Railroad. It was great to be able to cover both events. When rumors started appearing about the Big Boy coming to Chicago, it was when I was chasing the Iowa Interstate 6988, and it was before I think the Boone excursion was even announced. I could be wrong. People were talking about how the Big Boy was going to come to Chicago. I said no. My stance with our channel this year was no. We didn't want to get within a mile of the Big Boy because of, you know, just how crazy the traffic would be. And when the schedule was announced, I even went on our channel and said no, we would not be seeing the Big Boy at all this year. Then a few of my Chicagoland friends were like, you mean you're really going to skip the biggest event to come to the East this year? And I slowly talked myself into giving up 3 of my vacation days planned for other events, 261 and 611. And I thought about it, and it came down to, when is a Big Boy going to come to Chicago again? Yet alone, when is a Big Boy going to come this far east? So for 3 days, I chased the Big Boy from Altoona, Wisconsin, which I had to get a shot there, to West Chicago, Illinois. Now, one thing I'd like to point out, which I probably will go over in our Union Pacific Steam Memories, was the excitement was getting pretty real with the Big Boy. I could not wait to actually see the locomotive in person. Largest operational steam locomotive. So I had to get a shot in Altoona, Wisconsin for 2 reasons. One, when everyone saw that Altoona was on the schedule, everyone lost their minds that didn't read through the schedule clearly because they thought Altoona, Pennsylvania, or Altoona, Iowa. But yes, the Big Boy was in Altoona, Wisconsin. That is where us and Matt joined up and chased the Big Boy, following it to Chicago. Now, I was going to initially shoot in downtown Altoona, and idiot me didn't realize just how crazy it would be, how insane the amount of people was, and I wanted people a shot of the Big Boy, even though that was really asking a lot when chasing the Union Pacific Big Boy. So I set up at the first crossing outside of town, which our first subscriber Jackson and Lansing Railroad told us about, and I set up there. It was 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. We heard the Big Boy leaving Altoona, putting on a show. We heard the whistle and everything. And where we were set up, as I'm showing the shot right now, there was like a tunnel of trees. And all of a sudden, you heard it coming, and all of a sudden, there it was. There was the largest operational steam locomotive in Preservation Society. And there she was barreling right at us. And as she went by us, they did the usual whistle blow for a crossing. And I just remember sitting there afterwards, went in the rental vehicle we were in, booked off to go find out where I'd drop Matt off, seeing if I could even beat him to the spot. And I'll never forget sitting there in my truck going, holy, there is an operational Big Boy locomotive. There is the largest operational steam locomotive. There is a locomotive that I was told since the time I was a little boy would never be restored to operation. Yeah, that was literally how it felt. And you know, I mentioned that I didn't want to get caught in the traffic or anything with chasing the Big Boy. That was my #1 reason for not wanting to go out to Chicago. And guess what we got stuck in right after that shot in Fairview? A 15-mile long line of traffic pacing the Big Boy, because I don't know why people like pacing. It's stupid. But anyhow, I was highly satisfied with our Big Boy video. A lot more satisfied with it than I was the 844 video. I will say this, sometimes I go back and I rewatch some of our videos because it's great to see what we shot, and sometimes it's like, ooh, that's cringeworthy. I have yet to actually touch the 844 video since last year, and that is my favorite locomotive. I only hope this year maybe we can make the time to go back out and see the Big Boy, because it's not my favorite locomotive, but it's definitely an impressive sight to see. And when you see something that big moving on the tracks, going around curves, it's just awesome. Number 2 is the Grand Canyon Railway 29 Photocharter. And I'm going to include both videos because I can't really decide which one I like more than the other one. So for those who don't know, the Grand Canyon Railway has been a line that I've wanted to shoot forever. Not only because I wanted to go see the Grand Canyon, but because of the fact that I've had a childhood desire, like with 844 being on Shining Time Station. Grand Canyon Railway number 18 was also on Shining Time Station. 18 and 29 were both in various videos I had as a kid. So when this charter was announced, what do you think the first thing I did was? I went and I bought the tickets. I was not going to miss 29's last hurrah, especially after the Laro charter was canceled and it didn't seem like 29 was going to operate this year. I can honestly say I'm glad I went on a charter, because you really don't understand how unchaseable the Grand Canyon Railway is until you do a Photocharter with it. Sure, there's a few spots in Williams and there's a few spots at the canyon, but there are a lot of beautiful spots on the line. On day one, we just focused with 29. We did many different run-bys north of Williams, closer to the canyon. We even got some run-bys at 40 miles an hour, which I can't remember the last photo special I was on that had that. It was just an all-around good time. Lighting was great, weather was great, locations were great. Trains Magazine did a fantastic job, and at the end of the day, I was satisfied. On day two, 4960, the Mikado type locomotive there, came in and joined the Photocharter. And while I will admit I do actually like the Santa Fe 6 chime on 4960 better than 29 Southern Pacific 5 chime whistle, it was great to have doubleheader shots. For us this year, this was the year of the doubleheaders. From the Huckleberry Railroad to Schuylkill Haven Borough Days to 611 to the private charter I partook at the Strasburg Railroad. I have literally got enough doubleheader footage when that's really rare when you think about it in preservation. We got doubleheader shots, and then we focused on 29. And the coolest thing about day two was when talking with one of the crew members, me and someone else found out that 29's bell was still hand rung. So talking with a few of the crew members, we actually got 29's bell hand rung for the first time ever. Even in the early 29 videos I've seen at the Grand Canyon, I have never seen her bell hand rung before. It was a great way to close out my vacation time for 2019, and I hope this isn't 29's last hurrah. My number one video would have to be the Norfolk and Western 611. Okay, I can't do that with a straight face. We'll get to that in a little bit. My number one video for this year, if it shouldn't be a surprise to all of you, was our trilogy, the Iowa Interstate 6988 trek to Illinois back in May. So, little back history on the Iowa Interstate 6988. I last year did probably the most insane thing I've ever done. With just 3 hours of sleep, I drove to Iowa to see the Iowa Interstate 6988, which had came out of retirement after a 5-year hiatus, and after operations were pretty much deemed wouldn't ever operate again on the Iowa Interstate Railroad. And I had a great time. That's actually when I met A-Train Productions 4014. Baltic 144, I'm sorry I can't remember your YouTube name. It's when I've also met Santa Fe 669. Mitchellville left an impression on me. I definitely wanted to come back out and see 6988. And what happened last year, December? They announced the Menlo excursions. And what happened in February? They announced the Chillicothe excursions. So looking at my vacation time and everything, I sat in there and figured out I wanted to do Chillicothe. But I was like, maybe Menlo will be better. Then that's when I saw where Chillicothe was, in Illinois. That's when I began piecing together. It had over 100-mile ferry move from Newton, Iowa to Chillicothe, crossing the line of the 2011 Train Fest, and the depot with the diamond shop that I saw in the video that I had wanted forever. So the choice was obvious, and of course at the time 1309's return was thought was going to happen. It didn't happen, and that's why I had no vacation time from Menlo. But anyhow, the Great QJ Bash of May was probably one of my favorite adventures, and the videos all have their strong points. The first video, the trek to Illinois, covers 2 days. Reasons why it was my favorite: the Grinnell shot, the West Liberty shot, the eastbound facing shot at Geneseo. It was just a fun time chasing a steam locomotive with a revenue freight train behind it. That's when I met Running 8, who I pretty much would chase the next 4 days with. The Chillicothe video was good, but that actually was my least favorite day. But there was just some beautiful shots. It rained. That was the most insane weather-wise chase I've ever been on. We had summer-like temperatures to start, going to me and another rail fan holding onto an umbrella, to some great sunset shots with the 6988. Day 3, though, would have to par on with me with day 1 for the sole reason of, again, I'm going to get into whistles. One of the main reasons that turned me on to seeing the 6988 in the first place was the Illinois Central 3-chime steamboat whistle replica that it had on it. Watching videos from 2011, it almost sounded like my favorite whistle, the whistle 734 War in 1993. It had that screech, it had that deep tone, and I had wanted to hear that whistle on the locomotive. So guess what was on the locomotive when I first saw her last year in Mitchellville? Not the Illinois Central 3-chime, the Southern replica 3-chime, which was nice. It sounded like a raspier version of 4501. In the weeks leading to the Illinois takeoff, guess what was on the locomotive? The Illinois Central 3-chime. And guess what was on it when I saw the locomotive? The Southern 3-chime whistle. So you get how my whistle looks sometimes doesn't play into effect, where in other times it's great. So without sounding a little bit like a foamer, I was a little disappointed that the Southern whistle was on the locomotive. Day 3, though, had some of the best shots in my opinion. And talking about whistles, during the noon excursion, I believe it was, all of a sudden a 6-chime was put back on the Iowa Interstate 6988. And that's when it was revealed that that was the Grand Trunk Western 6-chime that it had not worn since 2011. This was one of the most beautiful whistles I've ever heard, and that specific day's tuning was absolutely amazing to hear it. I also got to hear the 6988's original 5-chime whistle. They went nuts on it through the town of Atkinson, which was great because me and a few other people were like, hey, what's the possibility of hearing the 5-chime? And it is a very unsettling sound, but it is a great sound. And, you know, we requested this 5-chime. Guess what whistle was put back on the locomotive? The whistle I wanted to hear all weekend, the Illinois Central 3-chime. But again, I'm just glad that there's fire in the locomotive. I'm glad she was able to run over 3 separate times this year, and it was absolutely some of my favorite railfanning memories were during that video. That being said, that was my top 5 for 2019. Real quickly, I do have top 5 honorable mentions, and I will go. They will not take as long. Number 5 would have to be the Milwaukee Road 261 Gourmet Express excursion. So when we planned on seeing the big boy, I initially wrote off 261 again this year. And we were planning on going to the valley for a weekend, and when plans kind of changed, I got thinking about how it would just be another year shooting in the valley, and like a lot of other rail fans last year, I did kind of walk away from the valley with a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth last year because of the way how things were handled. And this year I heard things were better, but I kind of wanted to go chase something I hadn't seen before. Finding a flight that got me in and out of Minneapolis with no vacation time was almost a godsend, and you know what I said? Let's do it. So I went out to chase the Milwaukee Road 261. And while initially I was a little disappointed that the excursions were only going from St. Louis Park to as far west as they could go, I still got the Mississippi River shot. Because of the overcast, I got a different shot at the Hopkins Depot. Usually when people shoot at the Hopkins Depot, they shoot on the right side of the tracks, but because there was overcast, I shot on the left side of the tracks, which to me was a better shot because you got a clearer shot of the depot. And it was just a great chase overall. And I'd also like to mention that we also were lucky enough to hear the original 3-chime used on the locomotive. My number 4 would have to be the Norfolk and Western 611 and 475 and 382 reunion to steam events. You're probably all looking at me going, what? What's wrong with me? Why wasn't this on my top 5? Out of the trilogy, because I am grouping this as a trilogy. While my best shot ever was of the 611 during sunrise, while all these things could be taken into factor, the main reason this is on my top 5 honorable mention is we had better chases this year. We did better. As cool as it was, as big as it was, it just to me didn't fit being a top 5. And while I was glad to partake in everything I did do, from the private charter to everything, and as much as I was glad to go to Strasburg as many times as what I was, I will be happy to say I probably will be taking a little bit of a break from Strasburg this year. And the 611 thing was great to finally see the 611 after 2 years. And it was a great time, don't get me wrong. I hope to see the 611 again soon in the near future. My third honorable mention from 2019 would be the Reading and Northern 425 Mountaintop Excursion. This one had been built up high on my list because everyone will tell you with Mountaintop, going down the mountain, the 425 is not doing any work. Climbing back up the mountain is some of the best stack talk 425 will ever give. And that definitely was the case. Like the 6988 on the Chillicothe excursions, the 425 on the mountaintop had interesting weather. Starting off again with perfect lighting, going to overcast, going to possibly one of the worst rainstorms I've ever stood in, going to sunny weather again, going to clouds, going to sunny weather, going back to that overcast. Yeah, the highlight of this whole excursion was the Whitehaven Tunnel shot and CP Cole. So one of the things that our channel has kind of gotten lost with over the year, and we'll discuss this real quickly, is and other cool stuff. My last two of the top 5 honorable mentions, number 2 will be Battleship Cove. It's been a while since I've gone to a museum dedicated to naval stuff. They have the USS Massachusetts, the USS Joseph P. Kennedy, and the USS Lionfish, and they have a destroyer that was built for the East German Navy. When I went there, it was not open to the public, but I've heard conflicting reports. Being able to go on a battleship was absolutely amazing. It is absolutely massive, and it was one of my highlights from my last minute trip to New England. My number 1 honorable mention will have to be the Henry Ford Museum. Probably one of the best museums I've ever been to, very similar to the Chicago Museum of Science, from the C&O 1601 to classic cars to airplanes. This museum had it all. That's my top 5 honorable mentions. And that was our top 5 favorite videos from 2019.
Hoped you liked them.
And now that it's a new year, it's going to be a new year, new me, new channel.
Yeah, you know, getting in shape, losing weight.
Working out, going to the gym, eating healthier.
Who has time for that, let's be honest.
Yeah. But legit though, thanks again for the 1,000 subscribers. Thanks for the support. Happy 2020. We're now entering our 4th decade.
It's going to be interesting.
And what can you expect from ASG in the next year? Obviously, steam locomotive.
Obviously, plane spotting and hoping to do more cool stuff.
That's one thing me and Chris were talking about while shooting this video, is that we want to try and expand together a little bit more, because definitely over the past 2 years, it's pretty much been me going everywhere. We're talking about adventures we want to see, and hopefully we can get a more unified front. Not saying it hasn't been unified, because that's not at all what I mean.
Anyway,
that's that. So,
Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Chris.
I'm Christian.